DailyMobile spoke to Minister of Tourism, Lands, Sport and Youth Harin Fernando on his recent controversial comments about Sri Lanka being a part of India, while also addressing his plans for Sri Lanka Cricket. Here's what the minister had to say. Okay, so Minister, welcome to the show. First off, let's just say you aren't afraid to make bold statements. From time to time, your statements have landed you in some trouble. You have been known to cause some diplomatic incidents. And most recently now, you're in the middle of a controversy about Sri Lanka's sovereignty. First of all, how do you handle it? And second of all, what do you have to say about this most recent controversy?
Well, when you speak from your heart, you always tend to speak from your heart, and then it could be always taken out of context. So that's what I feel, and people wouldn't realize what the audience was and how did it entirely flow. It was a 15-minute speech. It wasn't just 2 minutes of a cut which has been circulating. But that's politics, and when you're in the limelight, probably I'm in the limelight for the wrong reasons, probably. But nevertheless, I'm never short of controversies whenever I make a statement. But that also gives me the pleasure to say that I'm a challenge for many people. So they want to make sure that my credibility is affected, so that whatever the good work you do would not come out as a good work. So people would not recognize you for the good work. So that's how I live, that's how I sleep, and that's how I wake up. So that gives me more encouragement to face the rest of the day.
So you maintain that your statements have been taken out of context?
Absolutely, always. Biggest issue that I faced was the Easter issue, and I overcame it, I feel, because I was very genuine about what I meant. And it was an honest statement. I was taken to courts, I was harassed about it, I was harassed on social media, I was harassed all over, including my kids. But when you're in that spotlight and when you're actually a politician, certain statements you make, you have to take responsibility also. So I think it's a part of the job.
All right, moving on. It seems that you're President Ranil Singha's favorite. Is it true?
Not really. I mean, the stories, there are many more favorites. But I'm probably running on the first 5, so I don't know.
Right, because MP Vimal Veeravansa suggested that it makes you privy to certain exclusive information that others are not quite aware of.
I don't think people take Vimal Veeravansa serious anymore after the statements that he have made and from where his credibility lies. So I think at least not just talking but performing is also a very important part in politics. And I think I've taken up a challenge when the entire country was down and out, and I think I've done really well the last 1.5 years to 2 years. So I'm actually quite proud, and I wanted a challenge. I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to make sure that we do right by the country, because I was in opposition camp. I feel I was also partly responsible for the country's downfall of
Partly.
Bringing down a government, arranging all the protests, getting this whole animosity against the then government. So, I mean, once you get an opportunity, and then when you are asked to take a responsibility and perform, when my then leader didn't want to do it, I was pretty hurt that he didn't want to take up a challenge. And I thought that was an ideal moment, because we couldn't have looked at people suffering if we were people's representatives. So I think we had an ideal opportunity in Sri Lanka after 75 years of independence, or 73 at that point, to come together as one country to face a crisis. But we didn't. We still was divided, and they didn't want to get their name harmed by trying to solve these issues. But if they all came together as one team, Sri Lanka would have been in a much better place, and we could have really reached much more people, and we could have penetrated. I mean, with all what Ranil Singha had, he had only me and Manusha on his side, and then Vajra came along. It's only 3 people from his party. I mean, you can't blame him for working with whoever people don't like, because that is the only way to have got the country going and standing back on their feet. But because nobody else wanted to support because of their politics. And I feel that that shouldn't have been the way. I mean, if you look at a lot of world politics, whenever there are crises that erupts in the country, all the opposition and the government gets together for a certain amount of period of time just to make sure you come out of that rut. But in Sri Lanka, it's Lanka win.
So the president has extended an olive branch to the opposition leader, which he seems to have rejected, as I understand. What do you think? How do you feel about it? Your current leader has extended an invitation to work with the leader you have left and you have been quite vocally critical about. How do you feel about that?
Why I have been critical about something, I was the one who was actually even bringing Sajith into this whole picture. I had this first meeting in Badullah. I was in that whole moment where Ranil and his team was not allowing him to take over at one point. So we had to form a different party and to show that we are going separate ways. But it is completely different to what incident that happened at that point and where the country fell when I had to make a decision. It was a conscious decision. It was not about my personal politics, but I thought if I can contribute at that point, Ranil couldn't have gotten a government if, he wouldn't have been at least recognized, or even the other Port members, SLFP members, all the other parties wouldn't have joined if we didn't have joined as well. So,
just if I ask you in very simple terms, do you think President Ranil Wickremesinghe and the opposition leader Sajith Premadasa will ever be able to work together?
Honestly?
Yes,
no.
Honestly?
No.
No.
See, because the only problem is I don't think Ranil Wickremesinghe has a problem with Sajith as such. But I feel that, I don't know, I could be wrong and I hope I'm wrong. Sajith, for some reason, feels that Ranil Wickremesinghe is not genuine enough. I've tried to convince him while I was with him. I had tried
what
to
do you
convince...
mean by genuine?
With his thoughts, even if he brings him in, he always feels that Ranil Wickremesinghe will always support one of his own or his own supporters to lead the
favoritism.
party. Yeah, so he thinks of that. But I'm the best example. If you really look at it, I'm come out of nowhere and I was the only person who got into cabinet in that government, because that's purely because of merit. Because I performed, I came first, I got 200,000 out of 220,000 highest voter percentage. And I made a government because I was in parliament, left and went and contested. So he honored his word, at that particular, but I never asked him for anything before I left parliament. But I felt that he is a guy who will always find talent and then nurture them. So that's what I felt. But Sajith Premadasa feels that President does not feel the same way about him, but I tried to convince him many, many times while I was with him.
Have you tried recently?
I've not spoken to him after I left, so no, not now. But eventually, I think there's a big danger for him also. He can't lose 2 elections. And if he loses another presidential election, that means his politics is over at a very young age, which is not really young, but before 60 he'll have to go home. So that he would not want to take that risk. So I always feel ideal scenario would be SJB also to join our president and just understand who they're fighting with. So,
but you don't see this happening realistically? Not under Sajith Premadasa.
Well, I don't, but what if about 10 people from SJB cross over? Where is Sajith going to contest with? Who is going to support him?
Interesting question. Last question for you on the politics front. The main opposition is in a bit of a precarious situation, and at this time, the NPP and the broader coalition is making waves. How do you feel about that as like a government member? Do you see it as a threat?
Well, it's a threat, as in we are going the same direction that we went in 2019. We just want change for the sake of the name change. You go for change, but you do not really understand what you're walking into. Because it's all about experience. It's all about rectifying a situation, a country which is bankrupt, which has the zero minus treasury. Handling a country like that is far more difficult than what you see out on the surface. I do not think the Sri Lankans understand it. They're very emotional voters. Voters are quite emotional anywhere in the world, and they're annoyed with themselves for the decisions they've made. And it's easy for them to hit themselves hard and completely go a different direction and say, okay, we are going to change this. We are going to be the leaders of change. Leaders of change is not just voting for a party, but just understanding who can actually run it. Best of the bad lot could be sometimes the only lot that is they are out there to take you out. And I think Ranil Wickremesinghe has performed that. I like NPP, to be honest, on the only point of them being very active in politics. I've worked with them as a chief minister.
They're coming off as a quite strong opposition.
Exactly. They should be in the opposition properly, in a very strong opposition, and with a government like Ranil Wickremesinghe. So we will be always 100% giving 100% as well. See, even though politicians change, the government servants, the government sector, the system would not change. The politician's face will change, the party will change, but the system of Sri Lanka will run the same way. So you need to understand, lots of people say politicians are corrupted, but the politician can't single-handedly corrupt a country without the officials' support. So you need to understand, officials don't change, they'll stay till 60 years until they retire. But it's very easy to throw the stone at a politician because you vote for them. But then when you're an official, a job that you're working, you would not change. So that's why they came up with the system change, but it's very difficult to change the system unless all parties come together, understand where we are going wrong, and then make this change. So I think slowly but steadily, Ranil Wickremesinghe has changed that, but it is at the surface again, he seems to be supported by this lot that people rejected. So, but then...
So you don't see this problematic? You don't see being associated with this problematic?
It is problematic, but what would you have you liked? To stay at home and 3 weeks no fuel during power cuts of 18 hours? Would you have preferred that? Or even just jumping into this hot water and trying to come out of it with the people and saying...
So you'd rather take a proactive stance than...
Absolutely. I mean, it would have been an easier way that if I stayed at SJB at this moment, I would have been a very, very popular person. At this moment, not
I'd
that
say you're popular now.
Not that popular, but then I thought I'm from 18 months to now, I feel changed. When I go, I see people waving, they're talking, and before they're like, oh, the bug is there. That was a sentiment about 18 months ago, but they do realize. My first job was to make sure the last tourist was getting out of the country because we had to find him fuel, go to a hotel, pick him up, and then send him to the airport. From there, and where we reached. And that's why I was always thanking India, because we went first to India and got them to send us people. So they've done a fantastic turnaround, and I feel today is 27th, I think, if I'm not mistaken. We have done over 405,000 tourists just up until the 25th of February for the 2 months, 1.5 again, almost 2 months. Yeah. So we're doing really good, and I think we have so much better to do. And one big problem we're having is the airport. That's why I mentioned that the airport is crowded because we can't handle that amount of people. And there are more than 60 cruise ships that is supposed to come before end of April, 60 of them. Imagine the amount of numbers, the Colombo, the tourism, how it will impact on Sri Lanka. And I think that's the lowest hanging fruit. Tourism is the best place. And people think that what we have done, but before all the flights had moved out of Sri Lanka, we had to go one by one and convince them to come back. Emirates flies 6 times a day, Qatar flies 6 times a day, Fly Dubai flies 4 times a day. We have a massive, big operation now runs around, and we are going to new markets like Japan, Australia. So we've done quite well. So we're positioning Sri Lanka well, and I think we all put our souls together for just one term. I think Sri Lanka can go on their own ways afterwards in politics and everything else, but we need a stable country to put us. And I think an ideal person for that is Ranil Wickremesinghe because of his age and his experience. And all of us can build around him. So, I mean, even to Sajith, to Arun Kumar, to all of them can build around him because that's the experience that Sri Lanka actually needed. And if somebody says no, it's just that being corrupt-free would get Sri Lanka out. Absolutely, I don't think so.
Let's circle back to tourism. The numbers are great, like you rightly said. But like you also said, we don't have the infrastructure to handle that. And we don't quite have the offerings that other destinations around us have. How do you...
I don't agree with the fact that we don't have the... I mean, we have lots of new sites for them to see. I mean, those are natural sites, and people love that whole natural beauty of Sri Lanka. But the infrastructure it's a problem because our airports are not able to handle this crowd. We don't have enough hotel rooms. Very soon, we're going to have a massive problem with the hotel rooms because we have only about 45,000 registered and official, and unofficial like homestays, guest houses, another 40,000 or more. But we need to build capacity as soon as possible, and we need to get the high end to be attracted at least out of that entire lot of tourists who are coming.
Let me just interrupt you there. It doesn't seem as the Sri Lanka Tourism Board and the Promotions Authority, they don't seem to be working in one direction as far as we can see as journalists. Because on one hand, you say you're attracting wealthy luxury tourists, and then you're also promoting the destination to backpackers and digital nomads.
So this is
what's going on.
That's a two-way thing. So we, actually, I think one of our greatest successes is because we're working together. It's our
Who is working
Tourist
together?
Development Authority is a regulatory body.
Right.
And Tourist Promotion Bureau is purely involved in promoting Sri Lanka as a destination for different products. So I don't believe that there is a disparity or there are miscommunication or anything as such, because I feel one of our greatest successes have been because they have got this whole plan and a tourism policy going on at the moment.
Currently, we have a Russia and Ukraine tourist problem. What's the latest on that?
Well, actually, what happened was when the war broke out, many people were stuck in Sri Lanka at that moment. There were no flights. They were not able to go out of the country. And then started these charter flights because Sri Lanka opened up slowly for them. And Russians and Ukrainians all started to come in to Sri Lanka.
Right.
It's because they were only allowed to come to few countries in the world.
And we welcome them.
Turkey was one of them. Dubai was one of them. India was one of them. Sri Lanka was one of them. So there was a big into, and even Maldives was one of those. So those are the few countries options they had, and there's a huge amount of tourists that started coming into Sri Lanka. But they had a visa relaxation in here because of the war, because they couldn't go, and that was at the time when the war broke out. But then we didn't change it for about a good period of time. So I also don't know how this exactly happened, but with that whole white party thing, it was all over social media.
It's quite common, Minister.
Exactly. It was not just...
I myself as a traveller have experienced this.
And so this has happened, and then it went all over social media, and people are asking us to take action against this particular problem. So when we inquired, they were not registered. This particular party or this institution was not registered. So we were losing quite a lot of revenue, and this was quite common in Arugambe and in Miris, Valigama, this area.
This well-known fact wasn't investigated?
No, so it
until this happened.
No, it was, and we did random raids into places when they're not registered. So when you check their visas, they did not have the visa, but they won that thing where they can extend because of no flights and the war was out in this country. So actually they were using it, but what was worse was then they established themselves in business in here. Even renting out a bike to a boat to a surfboard to everything they were doing, and the Sri Lankan local community was not getting the money. And I was quite worried, I was quite scared, and this was about 4 or 5 months ago, that there would have been a local and a Russian issue that could actually happen in these areas. But we were quite monitoring it very well, and we were able to crack down few places. But it was quite constant, it was getting out of hand. As it progressed and as the numbers were increasing, we were losing a grip on it. So probably that's why the immigration sent that particular letter. Probably President wouldn't have known exactly the backstory to this, but the inquiry would actually show him where exactly the problem is. So it's quite fair by him.
What's the president feeling about this? His sentiment?
So far, I like to see, I saw him going to a restaurant that is done by some Russian people in Valigam. That's one of the best restaurants. They've opened one in Colombo as well, very close by here. So some have fallen onto the line of how the Sri Lankan laws work, how the business should be registered. So some have really established themselves very well.
Is this the kind of tourists we want to attract?
Well,
there was a Guardian article which featured a couple, which was basically like a step-by-step guide of how to, exploit Sri Lankan resources, jobs, things like that.
Yeah, so the thing is, you go see this in anywhere else also. There are bloggers, there are YouTubers who do all these kind of things. But I think we need to have a mix of both. We have the high end also now coming in. We need to have a mix
of those.
Also,
travelers as well.
You can't stop them, right? And tell me how you're going to stop them. You're going to ban them from entering the country, and you can't do that, right? So you need to get them. They will do that, but Sri Lanka needs to come out, and that's why I think we as media, as policymakers, we need to all promote Sri Lanka as a brand among Sri Lankans itself of what our rights are, what we should be doing, how we should promote Sri Lanka as a product. So Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority is working on a real good legal framework also on this. I have Sri Lanka Tourism Authority, which is the Development Authority promotion, but wildlife is with someone else. Then again, civil aviation is another person. then immigration is with another person. So it's
Are
actually
you hoping to
sometimes-
address that?
We did quite a couple of times. I mean, say people are blasting me when whale watching is expensive, but that's done by the wildlife. Yeah, like being expensive, they blame me for it. We had nothing to do with it, right? But I would have wanted it to be a different system where it's just a one go, tap and go kind of a system. So we're trying to implement it, but then President appointed a committee, interministerial committee with all the secretaries of these ministries on one group. So all the decisions had to be made there and brought in. But
Do we have a timeline for that?
they started. Don't see much success yet, but I think we just started it. So hopefully it'll get strengthened as we go along.
Right, let's switch gears. I think I've exhausted
Sports.
you on tourism. Yes. You were appointed at a time when there was a lot of turmoil regarding Sri Lanka cricket, and it suggested almost as if that you didn't want the job.
I didn't want to actually.
Why?
I mean, see, sports is quite tricky, right? And in Sri Lanka, if you do well, it's all the sportsmen. Or if you do bad, it's all the politicians, right? So
okay.
I always knew that even though I had a passion for sports, I knew it is a job that will never get any credit.
But you accepted it.
It is again a challenge accepted.
So you like challenges?
Yeah, so I always liked the challenge. I mean, even into 2014 to contest leaving Parliament with such a strong government, and President Rajapaksa's nephew was a very bold step, but it worked on my favor. So I always liked it. Even sports today, I feel, I mean, to some extent, I've turned it around, and I am quite happy to see where they are going. And it's all about people having confidence. The boys, the players, and they all need to have confidence that they'll have someone to go and talk to. And that's
Is that
all
person
I could
you?
do. No, I mean, as a politician,
Okay.
you should not get into. I am a policymaker. I'm not a coach. I'm not a motivator for them or
But you're
whatever.
open for all the players and their concerns.
So for their concerns,
Interesting.
I mean, anytime they could just take a phone and they'll call me Ayya and we'll speak. So that's a relationship I think they liked, and that's not only for cricket. So people think that sports minister being cricket
Quite
minister.
a lot of sports.
Yeah, there's 72 sports. So it's only yesterday, before I went for this controversial interview, all 72 bodies have their total autonomy, right? And they do not have any more interim committees. They're all being by elected office bearers. We need to actually move out of the system where a minister signs, minister approves, minister does for these teams. Nowhere in the world it happens. It's only Sri Lanka. So we want to have an independent body to run the sports, and these selection committees to appoint all that. I should be only a policy maker. Regulation, that's all should be my job. But I think why we had this minister approving teams was when we had the LTT war, because who represents Sri Lanka when they raise a flag of Sri Lanka, that should be under. The minister had to take responsibility on that. So that's why the signing was all up for. But now today, if you're not a guy who understands, I do not know all the 72 sports, and how would I know who's the right person to go and perform for Sri Lanka? So it's actually a very old school thinking to have a politician to get all this kind of authority. So with the new sports law, we're changing all of that. My powers all are going up to independent bodies. So it's just for namesake sports, which I'm happy about.
Right. But one question though, there were widespread calls for the SLC administration to resign. It appears that you're being lenient with them.
Not really. I understand how it works. And in 2019 also, I was only 8 months minister, but I was able to, when at that time we had lots of problems in cricket. Cricket was worse because it is where people are watching about, and most of the other sports people don't know what's exactly going on with it. And it's also the same because their mother bodies will always run it and they want independence. But especially in cricket and in FIFA and the football, they wanted no political interferences. So it was very clear. It was set out. They told us not to do it. And I mean, even when I came in, we brought a law with the anti-corruption. We are the only ones who have this anti-corruption law, other than I think 2 other countries in the world. None of the Asian countries have it. It's only Sri Lanka, and that's why I said even with all these allegations, yesterday I was trying to say in this debate, why don't you go and complain to the police that there is an anti-corruption unit which has been established by the sports law, which we could have used easily. And what happened here was, how we're going to address the administration issue is, we've spoken with ICC. We asked them about all the allegations that was on the Auditor General's report. It's their money. It's on Sri Lankan government's money, and they are, I've sent him a letter, they've sent me a backup letter saying that they're happy and satisfied with the audit, and they don't find any query there, right? How am I to take action? Only way that I can take action is make sure that the sports law, the Sports Act changes. So then ICC or FIFA can't ever tell us what to do, because it's a law of the country. So we need to, our sports law is so old, as in 1983, I think. Yeah. So it's quite an old act. So we needed to be with the time and change with time. So
when will this happen?
2 months.
Within 2 months?
Yeah, so we've got a cabinet approval. Ali Sabri's committee had given their recommendations. So Chitra Siri committee is drafting this whole cricket constitution plus the Sports Act as in a whole. So things will change, and I'm definitely quite confident within the next 2 to 3 months we should finish all of this.
You mentioned the cricket constitution, the SLC constitution. Even if a new one is drafted, it still needs to be ratified by the members.
Yeah.
Do you think that's possible? Is that some discussion you've had?
Yes. So what I told the SLC also was to give their recommendations to the Chitra Siri committee. That way I will know exactly where they stand, and then I'll address it.
It's also a little repetitive. They promise reform, but it never happens.
No, but right now it is in a different situation from what they were, because
it doesn't appear so to me.
We've spoken with ICC. ICC had given, last week also I went and met the head of the ICC. So we have a constant dialogue with them, and they understand that we need some change. And we've spoken with the SLC officials with the ICC itself, keeping them on the same table. And we've come into some sort of an agreement. Before there was about 149 votes that is allowed to bring a president or to get the office bearers. But now they've come on to about 62, which is a good start. So, ideally I would like to see it come down to about 40. But this is a good start to start off with, and it's a good discussion point at the moment. And right now, simultaneously, those things could go wrong, and all we have to do is pass it as a law in Parliament, which everybody would agree, I suppose, at this moment. And then things will change, and anybody can contest and come in. Right now, my job is to make sure that we unfortunately lost the Under-19 World Cup to be the host nation. We lost the AGM, which I was able to recover. So it was damage control job that I had to do and get the ban lifted, which I got in that. So, and with a short span of time, I think...
so you really are the president's trusted person in this government?
Go-to person, probably.
Right.
Not the trusted, I would say, but a go-to, probably, yes.
Okay. Off the field issues aside, Sri Lanka seems to be turning a corner. We had very disappointing World Cup performances, but we have a T20 World Cup coming up in June. What do you think? What's the message you want to give our supporters?
I think just have faith. Just don't get involved in all this administration thing, and just when boys lose, the frustration is taken out on the boys as well. That's what I felt very sad, and I felt it takes a toll on the boys also, because I'm social. I was listening to something about Denzel Washington last night after my interview, and he was saying, if you can stay away from your digital phone for 2 weeks, that will show your maturity. I was trying to think that whether I can do it to start off with, because sometimes we try to go for behind the likes or endorsement of people, and sometimes we miss out on the bigger picture. And one of the reasons I think Ranil is successful is also because he doesn't use a digital phone. And he doesn't want to know what people think about him. So, and sometimes I want the boys.
That works both ways.
Yeah, in the modern era is different, but sometimes we are glued on this, and everything is about what you eat, what you drink, where you go, what you see. Everything is on Instagram, and ultimately you realize you don't have a personal life, and everything is out there. So, for cricketers also it's the same. I'm meeting them today also. I'm just trying to explain to them, to keep your focus, it's sometimes very important to keep out of social media, to work on themselves, and not for your personal glory, but as a person, how they came up to that particular point. And I think the Sri Lankan cricketers they're never short of talent. We have lots of talent, but our structure has to improve, and which Sanat Jayasuriya has taken control now, because
these are some measures you put in place.
Yeah, so when we were young, I remember there was an under 15 Sri Lanka team, there was an under 17 team. Now we don't have those structures. And Arjun Ranjan, for one, came to the Sri Lankan national side when he was 15 years. He was in the Sri Lankan 15s team, under 15 team. So we need to groom, identify talent. And where do we play cricket? We only play cricket from Matra, there's only one cricketer, Samagi Jana. From Gaul, then Ambrangura, Kaluthura, Panadura, Moratua, Colombo, then up to Nigambo. That's it. And then now we have a cricketer from Matale, one from Kurunnagal and Kandy. That's all we play cricket in. We are not a country which has, even though we have 22 million population, we are not reaching all of that 22 million population. We play softball everywhere, but we don't have a way.
Every government has promised to address this.
I don't think. Show me any sports minister who have actually identified and said that entire country doesn't play cricket. Because now, luckily, because of that Jaffna League, the LPL, there's a team called Jaffna, and they identified a boy from Jaffna, and now he's playing even abroad at leagues and all. So it's good. So I believe we need a ground in Jaffna. We need a proper cricket ground to be established. So we've spoken to SLC and ICC. So there'll be 2 grounds that will be given to Sri Lanka very soon. And I'm quite hopeful when that happens. See, the cricket will expand. See, Dambul, the people, the way they love the cricket, the passion they have. They are the best audience I would have seen so far in my life. Colombo is good. I know we go for matches. But overall, I do believe that we need to reach out all corners and we need to have a talent search, because our schools have lots of infrastructure issues. They don't have grounds, and that's why President gave 1.5 billion to a committee headed by Siddhartha Tumunyara and the Silva to develop rural cricket. At the moment, 1.5 billion would be even enough, because most grounds, most boys don't have gear to buy, a matting to play on. So those are things that we'll have to identify, and then we can have provincial-wise teams selected and then play them across. And see, I think we need to take the support of everyone, like Mahilas, Sanghas, Arjunas, Aravindas.
And you have their support?
Most of them do, because I don't think I'm doing more. Yeah, most of them do. Whoever I've asked for support has given me support, but sometimes they also have their own little issues, you know, after a while. And after all, we are in Sri Lankan, so we always have some teething issues somewhere. So we never love to work as a team. So, but that is where people have groups, factions, so those kind of things happen in Sri Lanka. But I feel overall, cricket is heading on a good direction, but they need to be given at least a 2-year period, even whoever the administrative, I'm not talking about SLC per se, but let's say the high performance for the planning on under 15 to under 17 to under 19 levels, the coaches should be given a 2-year period. But I'm strongly recommending Sri Lanka Cricket to make sure all the coaches are given KPIs. I mean, if they're not performing, if their winning rate is low, they have to be removed. And because it's a high intense job, and just like for the players, I mean, when you're paying them, you need to have a return out of them with at least a 60 to 70% winning rate. You can't have a 30% or a 40% winning rate and having those kind of coaches. But see, what we play, our winning percentage is actually high.
Yeah.
Because we played qualifiers. So when you play qualifiers, your winning rate is high. The moment you play the top 10 teams, you really lose badly, and that's what happened to us.
And then that's all the disappointment we see among the fans. That's
exactly what happened when we lost to India very cheaply, bowled out for 58 twice. People couldn't handle it, you know. Then we were all cricket crazy fans. But when we are beating Zimbabwe to Afghanistan, people again started having hope. So you should not let that hope down, and that's what I keep always asking SLC, to make sure that they are on top of their job and to make sure that they achieve it. So I believe having Sanat, Mahel and all of them working together will help us, and we are having some fantastic legend tournaments coming into Sri Lanka. So the cricket interest, enthusiasm will remain. It's sports tourism again, and Chris Gales, Aaron Finch, all of them coming into Sri Lanka, if they do, would be a phenomenal thing.
All right, that's all my questions, Minister.